Good afternoon, guys. This is our Mod 12 case study, The Budget Debacle, and I'm Jonathan Winder. This is our final assignment for EDL 854 and Building Finance. To summarize the case and establish the facts, we're going to start at Briardale Elementary. It is one of 6 elementary schools in a diverse community. It is a kindergarten through 5th grade building with around 600 students. The school principal is myself, Carl Santos. And in this case, we'll find that the school has a foundation chaired by a parent, Mr. Barely, which is raising money for supplementary curriculum programs like art and music, etc. Mr. Barely has developed a raffle for cash fundraising idea that was approved by the foundation. He came up with the idea from a fraternity fundraiser done in college with a fraternity brother, Mr. Morley. Mr. Morley just so happens to be the chair or the president of another school's foundation in town. Mr. Barely has made this a competition against the other schools in town and wants the fundraiser to be the best foundation, the best the foundation has ever had. Mr. Barely clearly wants to beat Mr. Morley and his school in their fundraiser. And I think this is kind of something that stood out to me in this case. You have a situation where these two guys went to college together. They're very competitive. They want to win against each other rather than do what's best for their school and their community. And I think that's something that's kind of gone slightly unnoticed. The night of the fundraiser, a tipster gave information to the police and they showed up to escort Mr. Barely to the sheriff's office. He was convicted of a misdemeanor and placed on probation for his part in the illegal raffle for cash or gambling event. Some legal or ethical issues. Legally, raffle for cash is considered gambling and is illegal in the format chosen by Mr. Barely. He obviously didn't get a license or anything like that to make this thing legal to go on. Ethically and morally, this was wrong for the Briardale School District, its employees, and foundation to be involved in. Synthesizing what happened, Briardale Elementary School's foundation, led by Mr. Barely and Principal Santos, have organized a raffle for cash fundraiser to benefit the school's supplementary curriculum programs. Looking at the facts, synthesizing the facts, the people, myself, Principal Santos, Foundation Chair or President, Mr. Barely, and Mr. Morley, who is Chair or President of a neighboring school's foundation. Place, Briardale Elementary School, one of 6 elementary schools, and the town's meeting center in the middle of a diverse community. Program, we're talking about a public K-5 elementary school with 600 students, and they have a basic skills curriculum. Reviewing and prioritizing the information. The situation could definitely be damaging to the reputation of the stakeholders and the community, as well as Mr. Santos and Mr. Barely. Mr. Santos and Mr. Barely and the foundation have an important stake in the outcome of this case. The school board and other stakeholders need to be informed of this issue up front. There aren't too many more things to learn about this situation for me. I believe that there's enough here for me to make a decision based on everything that I've read and looked into. So let's identify the options and consequences that we have. Option number 1, obviously, is to take no action. The consequence is there's nothing done about the problem. You've got an angry community full of community donors and stakeholders, and then funding becomes a yearly issue. Option 2, you could blame Mr. Barely and the foundation, kind of throw them under the bus and Then kind of claim myself, Mr. Santos, as being innocent. The consequence of that would be angry stakeholders, division created between the community and the school, my reputation loses credibility, and funding becomes a yearly issue. Option number three. Option number three is pretty thorough, kind of a process. Number one would be to admit wrongdoing and return money to donors, restructure the foundation, create new policies and regulations for fundraising approved by the school board, regain trust from the community, and do a quick legal fundraiser for the curriculum programs money that is needed for the current year. A consequence would be short-term funding shortage until trust is rebuilt in the community. Taking a look at and evaluating our options. Option number one, the pros are it's quick and easy. It's the easy way out. Cons, you still have angry donors and stakeholders. You have future funding problems. Option number two, the pros. Mr. Santos or myself appear innocent. The cons, you still have angry donors and stakeholders, and you still have future funding problems. Option number three, the pros. It's morally the right thing to do. New policies are created, community relationships are saved, and you have a plan that supports school improvement and student development. The cons, you still have a short-term funding issue until trust is rebuilt. Let's choose the best option here. For me, I believe if I'm going to stay in this community, that option number three is the best overall thing for me to do. It's the best thing ethically. It definitely supports school improvement and student development. It rebuilds the trust with the community and the stakeholders, as well as new policies and regulations will be developed involving the school board, Mr. Santos, myself, teachers, and foundation members in the process. When looking at implementing my decision, there are several things that need to be done. Obviously, like I mentioned a bit ago, it is a process and it's going to be a process, and there are a lot of things that have to happen and fall into place for this school and myself to come out of it. Number one is to admit wrongdoing to the school board and all stakeholders, let them know that I mishandled this fundraiser. Number two, return money to the donors, make sure everyone is refunded. And then three, I want to share a new and transparent plan of action, which would include restructuring the foundation. I'm definitely going to have a conversation with Mr. Barely and let him know that we're going to have to go in a new direction and find a new foundation president or chair. We're also going to have new and clearer expectations for the foundation with much better communication. I think that myself, the superintendent, the school board members, the foundation, and its members all need to work together and collaborate so that we make sure that this doesn't happen again. Number five, definitely want to develop a new fundraising policy for the foundation. This will include setting legal fundraising options for the foundation to choose from. I want to come up with a list of fundraisers that are legal and that are okay for them to do and that they can choose from so that we kind of have it built in that this won't happen again. There will be required prior review of the fundraiser and all of its details, and that has to be okayed by myself, the superintendent, and the school board. Number six, we slowly need to rebuild trust through better communication, a restructured foundation, and a clear and new policy. I think that over time we can rebuild trust with the community and they can see that we messed up once, but we've put things in place to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Number 7, we need to find a quick and legal way to fund this year's supplemental programs. For example, spaghetti dinner, something I think that we could throw together in a week or two and raise some money to offset the cost of those programs, and hopefully not have to dip into another fund like the general fund to help um, fund those programs. I definitely think the thing about this case for me that stood out was you had two parents. They were in neighboring schools, but they went to college together, and they were still in kind of a competitive mode amongst each other and against each other, and their personal interests and their competitiveness ended up um, being more important to them than their school and ultimately all of their students. And I think they put their personal interest um, in front of what was best for kids. And I think that's the thing that stood out to me the most. I think having these parameters in place and having a new policy in place, better communication, collaboration amongst all stakeholders and administration and the foundation, I think that we can keep this from happening again. I really enjoyed this class. I learned a lot, and I wish you all well. Take care.